a really bad person to ask about this. The one thing I always said was, I don't care what I do when I grow up, as long as I don't become a teacher. And here I am. So how did that work out, and how did I get here? Well, it's very simple to explain. I knocked someone up at university. I had a child at 20, and then I thought, oh my God, I'm stuck with this brat. What am I going to do? I need a job where I get loads and loads and loads of holiday. I'll be a teacher. That's a really great idea. So I thought, I'll forget all my dreams about being a writer, being a famous journalist. I'll become a teacher because it looks really, really easy. So I kind of fell into teaching by default, and I did it because I didn't make decisions about what I did want to do, and I wasn't proactive about doing the things that you need to do in order to actually pursue your dreams. So I don't have many regrets in life, and I certainly don't regret having a child at 20. But if I could go back in time, if I had that power, then what I would do is I would think much more carefully. I wouldn't just fall into a career because I didn't make any decisions. I would actually think, what do I want to do? What do I have to do in order to become this person that I dream of being? Because if you don't make decisions, if you just go with the flow and let other things make those decisions for you, like having a child, or meeting somebody, or being forced to move to another city, then those decisions will be taken for you. So the good thing is, as it transpires, I'm quite good at teaching. I enjoy teaching. I really enjoy the holidays. The pay is pretty good. I know I don't drive a car as good as lots of you students out there, but it's good enough. It gets me from A to B. And I can go home and spend time with the people I want to spend with at home. So it's a perfectly good career. What I'm saying to you is this: you need to think about what you want to do. You need to talk to people whose opinions you value, and a range of people, about how you get there, about how they got to. So the reason why Mrs. Stark has done this video in the first place. And then you need to act on the advice that people give. Now, acting on it might be, that sounds like a load of rubbish and I'm not going to do that. But maybe people have got an opinion or a perspective that will really help you. One of the best things about teaching, easily the best thing about teaching, is when I think about the students whose lives I have directly affected because they've asked me the right question at the right time about what they should do. So I had a student called John Davis who had what for many of you would be the dream job. He was a manager for a video games company, and he basically turned up to work and he had to watch some prototype games, and he'd say, bigger boobs, more blood, more explosions. But actually what he really wanted to do was he wanted to be a comic book artist. So he rang me up and said, you've got a guy who does comics for Marvel, can you put me in touch with him? And John Davis now is a really successful comic book artist. That's a great success story, even though his parents nearly killed me. And I've got other students as well in similar positions. One guy rang me up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I've made a terrible choice at university. What do you think I should do? He was a born lawyer, and he'd picked history or English or a more general subject, and the guy was a born lawyer. So I said to him, Adam, you're a lawyer. So he dropped out of his course. He picked up a law degree in Manchester the year after. So he wasted effectively half a year of his life and a few £1,000, but he's now a successful lawyer in Manchester. So that's the great joy of teaching, is being able to be part of the process of helping people to make smart career choices. I just wish someone had done it with me.
I've been asked to talk to you about how I got here. That's a very long story, and I'm not going to bore you with the details. Just suffice to say that I didn't have a plan when I left school, and I fell into things. When I left school in the 1970s, back when we still had dinosaurs roaming the earth, I was moving to America with my father, who was in the Royal Air Force, and I was going to go to university out there. Things changed when I got there. The cost was way too much, and so I was forced into a situation of trying to find a job. And I then fell in, luckily, with some people who worked at a particular place called Bell Optical Labs, I landed an entry position there very quickly. Interestingly, because I had certificates for my O-levels and my A-levels, and at the top of the certificate it said Oxford and Cambridge Board of Examinations. It's known as OCR now, but it actually had the crest of Oxford and Cambridge at the top. They were under the impression that I had degrees in all of those subjects from Oxford and Cambridge. And stupidly, I disavowed them of that information and said, no, that's just O-levels, it's just the same as a graduation. But anyway, I got a job there, worked my way up, and eventually became a supervisor. It was a family-run company, and I was very lucky, and it was one of the best run of the family-run companies I've ever been associated with. And I learned a lot. My boss was an ex-Vietnam platoon sergeant, and he taught me an awful lot about the world and an awful lot about leadership. I then, while I was still living in the States, started my own business, and at the same time became a freelance designer, a sculptor, and I designed and sculpted miniatures for collection by a range of people, mostly in the sort of fantasy and science fiction, but also in the historical market. And then my father died. He was living back in the UK by this time, and my wife and I made a decision that we were going to move back to England. And there were several things that helped us make that decision, one of which was that, and I hate to put you off this about moving to America, but if you do move to America, you will expend a huge amount of your own income in healthcare. You will pay subsidiary amounts monthly for your healthcare, even if you're employed, and every time you go to the doctor, there will still be a fee involved that the insurance company does not cover, and sometimes it can be excessive amounts of money. We moved back to this country partly because of the National Health Service, and because we wanted to have both of our sons have a chance to interact with their English grandparents, having had years of interacting with their American grandparents. It was a tough decision on my wife's parents, but we made it in good faith, and we did try and keep them in communication, and we did go back and visit regularly. But I digress. I came back to this country flush in the idea that having been in America and having had a great deal of experience in the field of ophthalmic optics, I could land a job quite easily. Interestingly, I found out that people in this country, or businesses in this country, required paper qualifications, and I didn't have any of those paper qualifications. I had 17 years of experience in ophthalmic optics. I was an expert. I had worked with some of the leading companies, and in fact was working with a CNC, a computer numerically controlled development company, on a particular sort of equipment that was being introduced into Britain at the time. I'd been working at the ground floor of that, and I went to a company in Birmingham and said, look, I can help you install these, I can help you put these, and they said, where's your paper qualifications that prove you can do this? I said, I don't need them, just call Gerber and ask them. And they weren't prepared to do that. It's shocking. It was shocking to me. So I went back to university and got a degree. I was very lucky. I managed to get a degree, a master's degree, very quickly in the space of a year, and was able then to consider my options. And I ended up going into teaching. One of the reasons I did do that is not because I am a particularly good teacher, I don't think, but I am convinced that I can make a difference to some students. Not all, but some. And particularly those students who, like me, are a little bit confused about where they are and where they're going in the world. And what I'm trying to say, really, is if you're somebody who shows up and works and does their best, most companies will appreciate that over qualifications. But, as I illustrated, if you don't have paper qualifications, very often you don't get much further than the door. So there is a sweet spot in the middle where you plan to get qualifications that are going to be useful in whatever field it is you want to work, and you go and do that. I know some of my colleagues will have told you, have a plan, make sure you plan. But I think it's safe for me to say also that if you haven't got an exact plan, don't worry too much about it.